as we start this interactive discussion of the next 1 hour, first of all, thank you to ECDF, Dr. Vasavi, and to the MSME, the Ministry for Small and Medium Small Scale Enterprises, Government of India. And I'm blessed with a wonderful panel, a panel which is very thankfully more male specific than female specific. For Father's Day, at least, in the educational space, male teachers, principals, and leaders are in short supply. I usually say that it's easier to find a tiger in India than a male principal. With these words, welcome to all of you, each and every one of you. Right, I'll straight away go into the discussion. As you can see, my name is Colonel Shekhar. I head the Hyderabad Public School here in Kadapa. Kadapa is the hometown of our Chief Minister, Mr. Jagan Mohan Reddy. And we have Anuradha Kavuri, Sushant Kalra, and Robert Fox, who is speaking to us from Cambridge. Good evening, good afternoon to all of you. Straight away into the questions. The perfect parenting is what Sushant Kalra talks about. So my question to you, Mr. Kalra, is there something perfect about parenting? Question 1. Question 2, do we deserve to be perfect parents? 3, what is your perfect answer to my perfect question? The time starts now, 90 seconds.
It got me on a wrong spot. It's a great spot. Okay, thanks, Colonel. So, by the way, I've been working with parents for more than a decade now. And strangely enough, in the last 12 years, I've worked with more than 2.5 lakh parents. I haven't yet met a non-perfect parent. So, each one of you, including all of us on this panel, are perfect parents. The child is perfect. So there's no imperfect child never born. There's no imperfect parent ever born. The issue is that how do you create that perfect blend? Every human being is unique. You are unique. Your child is unique. The only issue comes in when we start trying to fit our ways with our children's ways. So this entire parenting, this entire book about perfect parenting, and your question, Colonel, is not about finding a perfect parent. It's actually finding the perfect blend. There's nothing wrong with any parent yet. Every parent
Nothing wrong with any parent yet. I wonder what our daughters and sons will talk about our parenting. And I wonder about what your children will talk about your parenting. And even more, as school leaders, we only have perfect parents and perfect children, and
Absolutely.
imperfect teachers and imperfect principals for sure. So you are
Absolutely
starting
not.
off something. We're starting off something which I have by definition something against it, because by temperament I look for perfectionism, which doesn't really help us. Now further to it.
It's a process, and we find the best blend, and when we find the best blend, it's blissful.
It is blissful.
And that is what needs training. That's what needs coaching.
I wish that I join you and become part of Parvarish in terms of being a perfect parent. No, Mihaly in his famous book about the flow talks about all of us. There are times when we are perfect. The flow just about happens right. And if you talk about cricket, Joe Root is in the prime form of his life. Anything he touches turns to gold. He just has to hold a bat and go down. A couple of years back, it was for Virat Kohli. He became a parent, and if he forgot as to how batting is all about. So that's a good way to start off and move to our next panelist,
But
Mr. Fox.
Can I add 10 more seconds to it?
Yeah, please, 15 seconds.
Perfection does not mean we are always right. Mistakes are also perfect. And it's perfectly fine to make mistakes. It's perfectly fine to be wrong. You make mistakes. You are not wrong. And that's what the difference is.
Interesting definition of perfectionism. You have a good future as a diplomat and a lawyer, sir. You state your case very well. To you, Mr. Fox from Cambridge, do you agree with Mr. Kalra, or do you have a different perception, especially with the fact that you focus much more on early childhood? Mr. Fox.
Thank you very much, Colonel Seka, for posing this question. And actually, it's made me reflect on what Sushan Kara said. It doesn't exist. Perfect parenting doesn't exist. It's more of our own expectations based on what we see ourselves doing. In life, I'm a teacher. I'm not the perfect teacher. I'm always developing my ideas. I'm continuously learning, constantly reading. But, you know, often I think parents, especially during this pandemic, have, and I've observed this through conversations with parents via Zoom chats and things, parents crying out for help and actually saying, I can't do this, help me, I need some advice. And my child is running the roost at home, running around the house, and they are being naughty. Now, I'm going to come to that point, naughty. They're not naughty. It's a development process. And for us as early educators, we're gifted with that knowledge of childhood development that our parents aren't specifically gifted with. I know my own parents always reflect on, you know, the way they were brought up and their own the parenting expectations of the past. So that dads often, you know, are seen as the traditional disciplinarians within the home environment. I remember hearing, wait till your dad gets home and you'll be told off, or, you know, you'll be
sorted out.
But it's actually now about us as educators being in tune to the parents' needs and actually building upon our own knowledge in order to meet the children where they're at in that specific moment.
Right. Wonderful. So good that already we have differences of opinion from being a perfect parent. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. I move to you, Dr. Vasavi. Father's Day. George Orwell wrote years back that Christmas starts off sometime in April, May, when the cards start off. So is Father's Day much more than anything but a marketing gimmick? I get to know what a Father's Day is when suddenly you find people around you, some students, you have been a great father, mother, etc., etc. So does it make sense? Father's Day? Is it in many ways something silly? Dr. Vasavi.
When we look at the events, like I would just go through the events that we have: Grandparents' Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Hand Washing Day. So there are a lot of days, you know, that have been dedicated to a specific, idea. So generally, what happens? I would not completely, say that this is a gimmick, or I would not completely agree with it. Or I feel that sometimes if we take, we really appreciate our fathers. You know, your daughters would be appreciating you. My child probably, you know, as a mother, it's Father's Day, I would say he would definitely appreciate my role in his life. But when we dedicate one day to a certain aspect, to a certain, event, it becomes kind of a dedication, and you take time to actually thank somebody. So your father, be it. I've seen today in the morning, I've seen a lot of Facebook page, posts that have said, my father is the best and this and that. So, it's kind of a Thanksgiving, to the role that you've had in your child's life. So though a lot of children, they keep saying it every day. A lot of, adults keep telling their fathers, you are my father, you're the best. But there are times when people don't get the time. And when it's a dedicated day, probably they find out sometime. And again, when it comes to whether these are getting like too much, but I would say it's okay. It's kind of manageable. It's good. It's a day. And today we are having this discussion because it's Father's Day. Otherwise, we would never have had a webinar on, dedicated to Father's Day. So here today we'll be discussing many pertinent points, many things. So how did it come about? It came about because of this event that we have today. So that's my take on it.
So you are saying it's not as much as a gimmick as it's made out to be. Good enough. 3 different viewpoints. Now to the person who understands people best, the psychologist. So, I mean, my question to you is, here we have a perfect parent has been thought about. There's nothing perfect is what Mr. Fox says. And Dr. Wasabi defends Father's Day. And as usual, I have a different perspective over it. Question one. In India, what is the perception of a father? One, the breadwinner, as in one of her posts she mentioned, and 84% of the fathers believe that they are supposed to do this. And I have always this fascinating point about teachers, especially in schools which we head, that the teacher, generally a female, she's a mother first, a daughter-in-law second, spouse third. In her spare time, she's a teacher. So it goes in that grade, which means that the father tends to be a breadwinner and asking for cups of coffee or tea, especially when you have a webinar going around. So what is the perception of a father and how is it changing? Madam Anuradha.
Thank you, Colonel, for that question. So yes, we do have different views of, parenting and how parents work, or how, what is the image that a parent should be putting forward. But I'll start with a proverb from an African origin. It says that it takes a village to raise a child. So it all starts with the environment, right? But the origin of parenting starts for a child from when he's born, and both the parents contributing equally to it. But in contemporary India, it is fathers are considered as breadwinners, as you were saying, right? And they were considered as people who need not be available for physical or emotional needs of the child. And the whole responsibility is being put on the mothers, and they're expected to take care of their children. They're expected to take care of everything. They're expected to take a break from their jobs, right? To take care of the child, whereas the father is only expected to support them financially. But a lot of research actually says that father plays a very important vital role in the child's when you have to grow a child, because they learn a lot of things, the social aspect of it, of how a father deals with things, how a father actually handles things at home rather than looking at a mother. Mother's role is very, very vital, but at the same time, father also plays a very important role, because children model their fathers and their mothers as well, and then learn a lot of
I'll
things.
interrupt you here. How is it changing, at least in the urban milieu of India, from your experiences? How is it changing, especially over the last 10 years?
So there has been a lot of change, because awareness regarding the shared parenting, what we call about, has started. So there's a research done by Nielsen Ipsos, from PNG India. And it has been found that 97% moms believe that it takes both parents to raise healthy and happy children. Okay. And 90% moms want their husbands to be more involved in baby care.
But does it happen on ground?
No, because 88% of dads believe that baby chores primarily need only mom's involvement, and a father need not be there.
Need
So
not
that
be
is-
there. Excellent place to bring in Mr. Fox. This is the Indian perspective. How is it in Great Britain and how is it changing? Because you have now dads, and you also have now dads who, both husband and by both the husbands together raise children, lots of IVF and all kinds of things happening. How is it in Europe, especially in Great Britain, Mr. Fox? You have to unmute yourself.
I knew this was going to happen. Anyway, what I was going to say is, it's ever since the pandemic, it's been more parents and more fathers have been working from home, and I've been fortunate to see this in some of the work I've been doing as a nanny, supporting pandemic childcare, and basically more dads are becoming more hands-on with their children, more likely to change the nappies, prepare the bottles for the under twos. and actually prove a point that men can multitask. This is a perspective in this situation as well. Men can multitask, and breaking down the paradigm. I think more needs to be done in terms of parental leave and time given back. In the long term, I think more perspective needs to be on more time to support the mother during maternity leave, and we adapt approach of what happens in Scandinavia, where it's a shared parental leave as such. There is more time that needs to be worked on, but also debunking the myths and actually recognizing that actually the new norm is more accepting, and actually we need to be open to that as educators and as professionals in making sure that dads are supported, but also prove that we can be more hands-on as fathers as well and support that.
Right, wonderful, sir. That's a good way to move to Mr. Kalra. What made you think about an institute for parenting, and is it only for fathers?
No, this is for parents. And when we say parents, it's not just mothers and fathers. Becoming a parent is biological. Parenting is not. So the way Anuradha also shared that it takes a village to raise a kid. Your siblings, your uncles, your aunts, your grandparents, even your maids, servants, teachers, everybody contributes to raising a child, and that's about parenting. Why institute of parenting? If I go back to my history, I never wanted to be a parent myself. Me and Monica got married in way back 1995, and we were clear we're not getting married. We are not having parents. Why? Because we saw parents struggling. We saw parents struggling. We saw children struggling. Parents used to say they don't drink well, they don't sleep well, they don't eat well, they don't study well. They're always on our case. And when we spoke to their children, the children had a different story. They said when we are sleeping, our parents want us to get up. When we are up, they want us to sleep. When we're eating, they said stopping eating. And if you're not eating, then eat. If I'm studying, go out and play. If I'm not studying, then go play, go study. So they're on our case always. So we said there's no point on getting a human being in this world and then creating a problem for yourself and them. But in India, getting married and not having a child is almost impossible.
Oh yeah.
Even the dog on the road comes back to you and say, "What's wrong?"
Yes. Huh? Oh yes, getting married and not having a children is
in India,
Ajmal Kasab for you. It's Ajmal Kasab for you. It doesn't work that way. It's something which we have to understand better. No, I have a follow-up question. I have a follow-up question here. The general point is understood. Have you changed? I mean, how long has this institute been working?
12 years now.
12
Actually,
years.
14, but 12 years full time. Complete.
12 years. 12 years is a reasonable time period. Over these 12 years, how do you find the Indian father changing, becoming more hands-on, as Mr. Fox said? And are we going towards the Scandinavian model, or are we quite far away?
So I'm not sure about what Scandinavian model or Indian model. I prefer dealing with human beings, and human beings are same across the world. So we deal with human psychology. So whether we say a parent or a father not involved, and we say it doesn't impact, parents, whether it's a father or mother, have a huge impact. When a father is not involved, you are still teaching and bringing up a child. You are training the child to tell them how a male needs to behave. If you're participating, they learn participation. If they're not participating, you learn non-participation. They're collaborating, you learn collaboration. If they're not, then it's not collaboration. So you are actually training your child, whether you're involved or not involved. So you have equal contribution in their growth. The problem is that we have collapsed gender with gender traits.
Fair enough. Yeah, gender traits.
Collapse traits, male traits as males. Males have nothing to do with male traits. Male traits are present in every female, and female traits are present, the feminine traits are present in me. If I need to nurture I need to be present. So whether I'm present or not doesn't matter. You nurture your child full stop. Is it
Right.
shifting? Right, it is, because now parents have become conscious, started to become conscious that whether I do it or not, how my child grows, it is impacted by how I am with them. Now there is
Right.
a shift happening, albeit slow, but yes, it is a huge shift. But
It's a
it's a
huge
long way
shift.
to go.
Yeah.
But it's a
It's a
long way to go.
very long way to go. Uh,
Yeah.
we did a survey in the school I headed a few years back. We did a survey of all the parents either way. And it was fascinating to see grades 1 to 4. And this was in an urban milieu where they said, our fathers and mothers love their mobile much more than us. Can they stop using their mobiles and talk to us? And it's much more evident in the early childhood space. So this is a lead question to Dr. Vasavi. I'm sure you would have heard the same. We tried, we worked it out. We had a lot of workshops for the parents, and we created 2 hour mobile-less windows for the children. Clearly, things improved. And we were even able to save a lot of separations. So how much has the mobile, the laptop, and in India, the television intruded upon parenting? And what is your take on it, Dr. Vasavi?
Very good question. See, I would say for children, being present, it means the world. And being present essentially doesn't mean being physically present. You might be physically present in the house, but you may be completely immersed in your phone or your laptop, in your work. And when the child comes to you with even a question, you are shunning of the child because you are getting disturbed. So what happens, in a overt or covert way, you are sending out a message that the child is not wanted near you, or, that kind of a scenario is created where the child essentially feels left out. I would say that gadgets or work in all forms, be it work at home, be it, the fathers going to the office and dedicating hours and hours of work, has affected parenting in a way, but that has been always like that. But we are now getting conscious. What happened? I would, bring in examples from our grandfathers' times, when in those times, there used to be joint families, and there used to be a lot of aunts. There used to be the mother and aunts, and it used to be a whole family with children, about 16, 17 of them. And even at that time, though the fathers were not essentially with their laptops or mobiles, but they were still playing the role of fathers, meaning they were the breadwinners and not much associated or into the lives of the child. So if you ask them the name of their children, they would sometimes forget, and even the age of the child and the class. Yeah. So this is actually not about the phone or anything. This is about the mindset. So parents, the fathers always want to be busy. They want to show that they are doing something very constructive. They're the breadwinners of the family, and they try to act busy and put the role in the mother. It's I would directly say it's a mindset, because it might not happen in every family. Because even, as a mother, a working mother is equally busy. She's equally earning, something for the family, and at the same time, she is also looking after her children. So if a mother can do that, why not a father? So it is something we need to work on, and that is the mindset and a change of perceptive, and a change of that, trait, the male trait, that has come in the form of male role plays. So what is expected of a male in the family.
Absolutely. Policeman is always never a policewoman. Nurse is always a female, right? Teachers are always females. All those, when you have these gender neutral books, you understand it better. Perfect time to ask the psychologist the next question about mindset. And this comes from a fascinating personal recollection I have. When I live in a ladies' hostel, I have one wife, 2 daughters. My mother and mother-in-law stay with me. So I'm the poor old male staying in the house. One. Second, we had earlier on a concept of family meetings. I was posted in Ladakh, and I'm alluding to what Mr. Kalra said, the role of the father. And being an army officer, I had 3 tenures away, and during the Kargil operations, I was there. So the children grew up in a particular environment. So when I was in Ladakh, I came back home. They were in Bangalore. So in this family meeting, our youngest, who's now in Melbourne, said, "Dad, when you come home, mom is relaxed. So why don't you leave your job, come home and cook for us? It's wonderful. And mom will also be comfortable." The daughters joined together. My wife was the one who objected to it big time. It's about mindsets. So my question to you, Madam Anuradha, is these mindsets exist. I'm sure you have many more examples. How do we change this mindset? What do you suggest?
So, Colonel, we have transformed from a joint family to a nuclear family, right? But the mindset of a father or a male has not changed. So the transformation has not happened for him. So there, when we were in a joint family, the shared parenting again was, most of it, the grandparents were taking care, or, the uncles, aunts, and the other siblings, they were taking care of the child. So in that also the females were playing a very major role rather than males being a part of it. Now, the nuclear families, yes, there is a need of both the parents contributing equally, but the mindset has not changed, right? There had to be an awareness campaign for fathers to make them understand that laundry could have been done by both, right? That can be done by both. I remember, ad by Ariel, and then they said that, the laundry can be shared by both, can be done by both. So I had 3 or 4 parents coming in and asking, why should we actually do? Because we are, contributing so much to the family. We are taking care of them. We are buying whatever is required in the house, and we are taking them for vacations. So if I'm going to sit at home and do all the laundry thing, so who is going to be playing a major role? But the mindset change has to happen because those are not the only requirements a child has. The child requires both the love, affection, and the ecosystem that you create around him, which will contribute for his healthy and flourishing.
So I'm
Growth.
looking for options. How do you do it? How do you deal with it? You're coming in, the guy is the macho male. He says this is what it is, and that's creating a problem for the children. How do you deal with it? What steps would you take in advising those parents?
So first of all, asking the parents that what do they understand about their child, right? Every parent has a image of what their child has to be, but have they ever discussed with him what are the things that they know about their child? What are their likes? What are their dislikes? What do a child does? A father has zero clue of what a child does in a day. Whereas when you ask a mother, she can as well say of what was the dress the child was wearing when the child woke up, from the dress that he wore till he has gone to the sleep. So a father making him aware that how unavailable he is emotionally and physically by asking them few questions, and then have you had a meal together with your child, and what are the things that you discuss at that point of time. So generally the parents say, no, we are so busy, we cannot have a dinner together. There's at least one meal a day. And what are the things that they discuss at that point of time? It is more of a sharing time, asking the child questions. How was his day? Father sharing how was his day, and then what were the experiences he had.
Right.
Because the
Right.
conversations that they would be having and understanding the child would actually bring an awareness into the father about understanding about his child and how available he has to be there for the child emotionally rather than physically.
Wonderful. And that leads me to Mr. Kalra and his institute. What are the 3 significant challenges you have faced in making the father understand his role better in an Indian context? You are muted, sir.
Sorry. The first, I think everybody's sharing about the mindset, and this mindset is not a personal mindset. This has been years of the way everybody's grown. It's years of stuff which is there. I've seen my My father is his father, and his father is his father. So how it's evolved. At some point of time, if I look at my own family, if I look at a generation earlier, not just my family, the 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 first role, the first thing for a parent was to get the food, the shelter, and the clothes for the children. And we're talking about even 1940s, when 1947 specifically, when they got independent, things weren't developed. So the first thing was survival. And by the role of it, it went to the male. So they started doing that role, and the children at that age only saw their parents doing that, and that difference got like embedded in our male fraternity. Now bringing that out has been the most difficult one. And yet, what has happened now, as I said, people are getting more aware. Parenting is now a very researched thing. It's not just so people used to feel parenting comes naturally. There's been a lot of research in this area for the last 30 years, and people have started reading it and started knowing it. And I would say parenting does not come naturally. If it was natural, then the world won't be the way it is going. 30 years, every element of humanness is gone down. If there must be something missing that it's going down. So that's number one. The other one is not just me saying, okay, I want to be involved. It's a societal thing. If, for example, as a parent, I would say I would want to get involved with my parents, my own children more, my circle around says, oh, you're a sissy, or are you a man enough? That's not your role. Like I remember
Although,
when my dad held my daughter, my son, in his arms, he used to play with them. He used to be called a sissy by his own friends,
yeah,
his friends. That "Hey, this is not your role, yeah. Get off it." So that whole support structure is pretty much different. So that's the second one. And third, I would suggest say that that whole philosophy of parenting comes naturally. Uh, Women are nurturers.
hmm,
That's not true. When a child is born, the woman is as novice as the man to even change the diapers.
right.
Even feeding a child does not come naturally. They got to learn it.
Absolutely. Fair enough.
It's not
I
easy.
get yeah, I get what you're saying, but I now take all four of you to another question. I come from the state of Kerala, which has got the largest number of Indians in the Gulf. And I've been an army guy. The vast majority of our 1.2 million army does not stay with their families.
Yeah.
So there are ground realities. And I this time start off with the psychologist. How do those fathers deal with their spouses as well as their families? And I'll add something more to it. There was a study done in the India's Northern Command to check out on deaths of soldiers, 192 of them. And 190 of them killed themselves after they got a phone call from their families within half an hour or 1 hour. So putting this in perspective, with a large number of India, we talk about our demographic dividend, with Europe having very low growth rates, so also Southeast Asia. When fathers go abroad, how does it affect the family? How does it affect the father's role as a parent? And what would you suggest as the ideal way? Madam Anuradha.
So as I was mentioning, that role of a father is very important. And yes, um, raising a child by both the parents, it does develop, it helps the child in having less behavioral and emotional problems, and exhibit higher self-worth and self-confidence. At the same time, they are open to options. But whereas in the scenarios where the father is not available, right, the impact is they'll be nurtured only by the single parent who is available. So it is more like a single parent, giving them all the necessary needs, and then taking care of them. But how do we take care of it? Yes, the father has to be available for them at least. Through right now we have this technology through which they can connect with their children, they can talk to them, they can be a part of their family. Making them. I do understand, coming from an army family, you would understand that you cannot get leave for birthdays or any other occasions in as such. You cannot be a part of it or share your love and affection with them. But
and a lot of them in the Gulf, abroad, plenty of them. In fact, if the Gulf money stops coming to Kerala, Kerala will collapse in less than a month. They get about 25,000 crores every month. Please continue.
okay, so that is where, whenever the father is coming and then he's meeting the family or meeting the spouse, because we do understand that the spouse has to be emotionally quite strong to handle a child and telling that father would be coming someday, right? So at that point of time, the contribution of the mother is equally there, but father has to be connected with the child whenever he's getting time, having a conversation with them, explaining him or her about what is his journey right now, what is he going through, right? Because
what is he going through? Okay,
yeah, so
fair enough. What is he doing? What is he going through? Mr. Fox, do you agree with her? Do you have a different take on it? You are still on mute.
It's interesting hearing your perspectives there. I think obviously making the child aware of what is happening is important, but also not telling the child too much to inflict the parent's own trauma on to their child at the specific time. We've obviously touched on gender traits. I'm just going to go back on a previous point that was made. You were saying about boys being called a sissy, being in tune to that. It made me reflect actually on the way we say boys can't play with dolls and boys can't do anything. I guess as males, we are we can keep our emotions in for so long and then we explode. But actually, it's important that we teach children to regulate their emotions, but actually we as adults need to show that modeling of regulation in order to make sure that these children are being supported during that time that their parents may be away as such.
Are you able to hear me? I get what you are saying and I understand. And I do follow up on this question with Dr. Vasavi. Imagine you have many Jawans, people going abroad, many of them coming to Bangalore. Imagine you have two children. The father is in the armed forces. The mother is raising both of them. What change do you see in their early childhood? And how do you look at them? How do you neutralize some of the traits which might come because of the absence of the father?
The absence of the father actually has a huge role to play, in a child's life, I must say. And that I would, I can quote from my own life because I lost my father when I was 3. And my mother raised me and my 3 sisters all alone. And then she studied and she struggled and she did a lot of things. And somewhere I feel, the lack of father in our lives had some kind of impact, be it negative, positive, be it something, which kind of always motivates me to do something because I took him up as a role model. Now, when it comes to, people working in the Gulf, working somewhere, they're far off from the family, I feel that this requires a lot of understanding in terms of the mothers, because now the mother is essentially playing the father and the mother at the same time. Though the father is around, he may communicate with the child sometimes over the phone, sometimes there might be no, proper network, so they might not even see each other. So here a mother needs to be very empowered because she's playing a dual role. And secondly, I would feel that it is also between the parent, the understanding between the father and the mother in the roles that they are sharing to raise the child single-handedly though the father is fending for the family, being the breadwinner, or staying away because of, of his work and his duties. I think the father needs to have very clear dialogues with the mother in terms of how they are raising the child, what are the difficulties they are facing. There are quite good linkages, like Mrs. Sushant's, organization, which talks about parenting. There are lots others who supports parents, who support single parents. So these are actually kind of, uh, uh, different modules of single parenting in terms of, the mother is raising both the child and the father. When they come back, I've talked with people whose fathers used to work away, from the families, and when the fathers used to come, and when they grew up, they could barely understand the father. In fact, they had a lot of gap. There was a lot of gap that was there. So it's a duty of the fathers to bridge that gap while they are there, first physically in the house. Number two, it's a mother father role where they collaborate and they take up parenting as, as one duty, and this is my duty for now to, win the bread in the family. And there should be some understanding with the child, because early childhood years they might not understand, but when they grow up, they tend to understand the necessity, the needs, and the need based, situations where they need to adjust. So we had to adjust to our situation where we lost our father, which was a lot of trouble for us, but then that did not make us any less. So there are, as human beings, I feel we have a mind that can kind of accommodate certain situations that might not be very congenial for us, and we have to have our way around it. We have to take counseling if required. The parents might take counseling when they have difficulty, and that is why we have such organizations, such linkages in the society, which can help us in this kind of a situation.
Wonderful, wonderful answer. Right. Picking up from what Dr. Vasavi said to you, Mr. Kalra, the urban father and the rural father. In your last so many years, do you find a difference? And obviously there are differences, places, areas, etc. And how do you get the rural father to understand his role better?
So before answering this question, I want to just break a myth for all parents. Okay? We all feel that parenting is a factor of time spent with children. It's not. Absolutely not. It's not a matter of time, because if it was a matter of time, with so many women, so many mothers spending almost the entire day parenting, things should be seen differently. In my experience with working with hundreds of thousands of parents across the country, across the world, it takes you 15 to 20 minutes a day for parenting. You want to spend more time? Sure. You have fun? Great. But it doesn't take more than 15 minutes to parent your child, provided we know exactly what to do and what do we mean by
15 to 20 minutes of your day or any time, you become a good parent?
Absolutely. You need to know what you need to do. Your
That
job is
I
not to do
agree.
stuff.
Yeah,
So let me just complete.
I'm just deliberately putting it so that everyone answers. I am genuinely skeptical, sir. Please go ahead.
So, not a problem. When we don't know what to do, then we can take ages to do it and it still doesn't happen. But when you know what to do, then it takes minutes. So it's very simple. Till the time man didn't know how to go from here to US, it never went. They never went. They took months to reach. And when we could invent the flight, it just takes a few hours. So it takes time for learning. And when you learn, you become an expert. So coming back again, to if we spend the time, we know exactly how to spend and what my role is. So it will help. The difference between rural and urban parent is that rural parent, rural father thinks has a myth that I don't have the resources. I don't have the resources. I may not be able to do it. This is not my prime thing. I need to earn. I need to grow. I need to do something else with my child. When you break that, because parenting does not need resources, absolutely none. Your child can go to a government school or your child can go to an IB school. Which child will become great? The school cannot decide. It has to be the whole thing together. So once you break the myth that even people with limited resources or virtually no resources. So for example, we've posted an organization called IVF, that's called India Vision Foundation, run by Kiran Bailey, who support children whose parents are in prisons, and they have foster parents taking care of those children who are outside. If it can work for them, it can work for anybody. They don't have resources at all. So we need to get off it that it's not about resources, it's about learning what to do and what my role as a parent is. Like I can bet 9 out of 10 people cannot define parenting.
Right. I enjoy your exuberance and your positivity when you deal with parents. You have dealt with hundreds and thousands of them. We have our smaller numbers, husbands and wives, coming with their children, etc. Right. We are coming into the last 10 minutes of our session, and I believe Mr. Fox has to leave for something else. Mr. Fox, your thoughts about Father's Day, hopefully with an anecdote, and also your concluding remarks.
Sorry, sir, could you repeat the question? I do apologize.
Yeah. As we are just into the last few minutes of this lively discussion, your thoughts about Father's Day, hopefully with an anecdote, and your concluding remarks.
Okay. For me, my father always says Father's Day is every day. And, you know, I go back on the quote, honor thy mother and thy father, taken from the Bible in the commandment, because actually without the supportive nature of a connection, you know, it was interesting hearing your perspectives today about the way fatherhood is perceived within your context, and actually to learn that and recognize that fathers, you as an educator and as a caregiver, the male image of perspective is ever changing. And for us to be so open in shifting a paradigm of change, to realize that men do these tasks, men are positive role models. I wanted to leave you with this. As a male caregiver and as a male advocate for young children, men care as much as women. We care to educate. Caring is the foundation of education, and our balance and discourse is that we need to promote the positive male role model, whether we be fathers, whether we be educators, or we grow and learn together. My friends, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this today. I feel I've limited my perspectives here, but it comes from the heart. So God bless you all, and thank you for letting me be a part of this today.
Thank you for being here, sir. It was wonderful hearing you. Have a pleasant Sunday ahead. Take care, sir. Regards to your family. Right. The same question to you, Anuradha Kaburi. Yes. What is your take, hopefully with an anecdote about a father? Dr. Vasavi has already shared hers. And what are your concluding thoughts?
So I go back to the same proverb saying it takes a village to raise a child. But the role of a father is very important, and the contribution that he has, as Mr. Sujant Karla was also mentioning, you know, they have to know what is right, what they want to give, even 15 minutes a day. Yes, how do they want to contribute to the growth of the child? And they have to be aware of it, of what exactly do they want to give to their child. And at the same time, in 21st century, yes, we are seeing a lot of there has been a paradigm shift during this corona period as well, wherein fathers are now thinking of the various ways that they can contribute in helping their spouse, and then making it a more inclusive ecosystem for the child, so that he can understand, he can be a part of it equally as much as his mother.
Right. Wonderful. Dr. Vasavi, my question to you is, how do the current Johars, how do they look at parenting? What is that perspective Or is it now becoming increasingly something of a norm, at least in urban India? The single father who voluntarily looks up to an alternate form of pregnancy and caregiving?
I think yes, there is a lot of change in the mindset of fathers in terms of, in the millennial dads. They're a little different. We have the single fathers, we have the gay parents, we have different kind of fathers in the society, or sometimes those who are adoptive. I think men in their own ways have changed, and again, it is not collective change, it is very individual change. It's very subjective, depending on their understanding of certain things. Like, we have our own, we all see the world, but with our own eyes. So it cannot be said that there are too many of the Karan Johar kind of parent, but yes, that trend is coming in, and there are a lot of changes. There are a lot of others who are taking them as examples, and they are moving towards a shift where they single parent the child. And I feel that this is a very positive trend, because this is a very positive example for the society in terms of the roles. Because all the time, I mean, even Mr. Sushant has been talking about the male traits and the male roles. So when, there are males who are giving examples where they are essentially doing something which is not expected out of them, and then there are others who follow. So you are a role model in a way. So I would say that this is a positive change, and since it is an individual decision, I never like to be judgmental, so I never judge on anybody's decision. But I feel this is a very positive thing, and it's very acceptable. It's really very nice and acceptable.
Right. Now to you, Mr. Kalra. The three significant challenges you, as a parenting coach, as a writer, somebody dealing with it, face in a rapidly changing India.
With respect to,
With respect to fatherhood and parenting, every which way, because I'll just give you a perspective and an example. Couple of cases. One, residential schools, in between they lost their mojo in many ways. Now many parents simply do not want to have their children with them, and this is a live example of a parent. This was from a southern Indian school. The parents were told, why don't you pick up your children? Both the mother and the father told them they belong to a high net worth family, and parents said, why don't you keep them for the summers also? So the principal, in a fit of anger, asked the parent, why did you create these children? He says, हम ये बच्चे क्रिएट इसीलिए किए हैं, अदरवाइज our parents said हम जायदाद का कुछ भी आपको नहीं देंगे, we are not interested in parenting. Real life, this is as real as they come. Second example, and this happened in my own wife's school. The father rang up the principal. The child is coming to the school, it's residential. He says, my daughter has picked up 25,000 from my account, and please collect it when she comes to the school. So the principal said, excuse me, you are the father, you have to pick it up. He said, she doesn't listen to me. So these are new perspectives which are coming in. So what are the three significant challenges you see in parenting? You can take a larger perspective, and what is coming up? Can you, with your experience, look into the future and say, these are the challenges and hopefully these are the solutions?
so the first challenge and the biggest one is breaking the whole mindset and the myth that parenting comes naturally. It doesn't. Uh, and by the way, when you ask me the question that why a parenting institute, it's linked to that. That when Aman, my wife was pregnant, Aman wasn't even born. I said to myself, I don't know parenting, and I don't want it to go the way everybody's going. When I said that to myself, I opened a door for myself to learn. And from that day onwards, it's been 22 years. I can still tell you that I'm learning. I'm acquiring and I'm learning and I'm learning and I'm learning. It's through experience, it's through reading, it's through my own research, it's through talking, it's through writing, everything. So if I say I don't know, and that's the biggest challenge everybody faces, because they say, "Oh, I know it." If I say I know it, then I close the door and that's it. It's like if I say I don't have fever, I will never go to a doctor and I will never get it done. The only time when I say I have fever, I have a problem, I go to a doctor, I have an opportunity to fix myself. So that's the biggest one. Uh, and the second one again is saying that whole collapse of your gender, which is a male or a female, your stereotypes, which has been carrying on for thousands of years, and your traits. So all of these things are collapsed right now in our head, in the society's head. You can't change the society. It's basically to change starts here. If we start recognizing that this is my gender, I'm a male or a female, these are my traits, and these are stereotypes. So every human being has all the traits, all feminine and all masculine. And I tell all parents that if you want your child to thrive and have a fully expressed, fully experienced life, you need to nurture all traits. The nurturing trait in a man and the masculine trait in a woman. And that can be only provided if both work together.
Wonderful. Right.
Right.
That's
So
the that's wonderful. That's a perfect time. I have 2 minutes to go, and I always do this at the end of sessions I moderate. The one questions you guys wanted to ask me, I asked all the questions. I start with you, Madam Anuradha. The one question you want to ask me, feel free.
So do you think the maternity leave which is given for the women, now organizations are surely opting for it for men as well. Do you think it has to be mandatory so that, the contribution of the father is more?
Yes, it has to be mandatory. Otherwise, it doesn't work, at least in India. In fact, in the United Kingdom, we have grandparent paternity and maternity leave. It's gone to that level. A problem is those 15 days are taken as part of a chutti. We don't seem to realize it that way. So, I mean, when you work on it, it makes sense. Initially mandatory, but over a period of time, it will settle down. And I entirely agree with Mr. Kalra. The key is, I am a parent and I'm going to learn parenting my way rather than cut, copy, paste. There are so many people. I myself am an example where my mother felt terrible when I'm taking care of our children. My wife could leave the home for 4 or 5 days. The children could be comfortable with me. She wouldn't have a problem, but all the elders in the family, oh, Joru ka gulam can hit you hard. So you are ready for it. He said, okay, that's fine. So that becomes significant. But I believe initially, yes, I believe it has to be mandatory. Otherwise, it won't work. Dr. Wasavi, your question.
How would you rate yourself as a father on 10?
Good question. My daughters say that I've been a good father, but occasionally painful and a perfectionist. So they have their questions. So when they are in a good mood, they call me Bassanio of Shakespeare. When they are in a bad mood, they sometimes compare me to Macbeth or Mark Antony. So it shifts, but generally the daughters are comfortable with me. That's all
So
I
you would
can
rate
say.
yourself a 5 because it shifts,
I mean, no
or a 7?
numbers, no numbers as such.
No, you have to
I
rate
mean,
yourself on 10.
no, because it is, they are comfortable with me, they can stay with me. So we broke a trend in our families, in the Orthodox family. So that brought about, because being in the army 35 years back, we were among the youngsters who said we will not drink, even in Ladakh. It started off a kind of a revolution. Now, more people drink outside the army than inside the army. So those are things which we looked at. Yes, Mr. Kalra, your question for me.
So from managing institutions for the last 15 years, okay? So I keep wondering, even if you need to drive a car, you need a license.
Right.
You're basically creating the future of the world. How do we make sure that people learn before they drive?
A wonderful question. And I end often by saying, I don't know. You know, that's an easy answer to say. Because I always say teachers should be able to say, readers, I don't know, I'm sorry, I apologize, I'll verify and come back. Because being in the army, having been an army educational corps officer, having been part of military Sainik, Kendriya Vidyalaya schools, etc., my thought has always been outside the army, the key, what I find, India is a low trust country. In the army, trust is paramount. Shekhar is an officer, he will do it. यहाँ बाहर आने पे कर्नल शेखर आया हुआ है, देखते हैं क्या करता है, then we'll trust him. So I find that to be the single most important challenge before making them understand that this is the brake and this is how you have to drive. And as you correctly pointed out, rock solid mindsets. Here in the school which I am heading, first standard students have examinations which are long, and when I say no exams, all hell breaks loose. So various challenges every which way. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to host this discussion. I learned as much from it as much as I asked you questions. Have a pleasant Sunday ahead. Back to you, Dr. Wasabi.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Colonel, for moderating this session. And it's really interesting. I guess there are a lot of takeaways. And we have live streamed it on Facebook, and we'll also put it up on our YouTube. So we'll be sharing the link with you all so that you can share it further. And wishing everyone a very happy Father's Day. And I thank Mr. Sushant, Ms. Anuradha, and Mr. Rob for joining us today and for sharing the views. And I think this is a webinar which is really, really insightful in terms of the role of father, what we are expecting, and what the millennial fathers are, and the challenges that are there, which will always be there, but we need to have a way around it. Thank you so much for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.